Could the concept of remixes and mashups work for comics? Are you even familiar with what those things are? Well, a well-known comic creator, Matt Fraction, made this suggestion several years ago, and it's several years later, and nothing has happened yet. So why not? Does that mean it's not feasible? Let's talk about it. Hey there, this is Perch. This is going to be a bit of a departure from some of the other things that I do, and it's going to be one of the cases where I think I'm talking to a very small percentage of people right now. A few of you will be on board. You'll know what I'm talking about. Most of you won't care, and you'll tune out within the next 30 seconds or so. So I'll try and jump quickly to that point. If you've ever heard of a mashup is where usually a DJ takes several songs, sometimes two, where they do a fight between two songs or artists, or many at once. There's a well-known DJ Earworm, that takes kind of the top songs from the year and mashes it up into one track, one listening experience. And if you haven't heard of any of this, I'd recommend heading over to YouTube, type in DJ Earworm in a year, maybe a year in the last decade or so where you remember liking music, and see what comes up. The video is irrelevant. It's the music, and it can become, when done well, pretty cool art, because when done poorly, it just sounds like discordant crap. When done very well, you get kind of a whole new experience. So I'm going back in time now, more than 10 years. I want to say this would be about 2007, 2008. And, San Diego Comic-Con, a panel about digital comics and the future of comics in that space. And Matt Fraction is, of course, a writer, currently does Jimmy Olsen for DC Comics, but well known for doing a run on Iron Fist, on X-Men, on Hawkeye. He has Sex Criminals with Chip Zdarsky that he's done. So lots of different things that Matt Fraction has been a part of. Casanova. And he suggested in this panel that at some point, where digital was concerned, that there was a big opportunity to create mashups or remixes of comics, where the digital files would be made available to readers and consumers and artists, and they could take those and they could kind of make a new comic out of an existing comic. And some people do this today, where they will take a comic and they'll kind of manually blur out the words and then they'll put new things in. I've taken just static panels and taken kind of Twitter commentary and thrown it into comics as a joke. But this idea that you could put out a comic like, say, Civil War, and give readers the ability to change the dialogue around, to basically show that they could do it better, or do a whole new tone to the story. Or what if the art, the characters were on one layer, the backgrounds are on another layer, and the text bubbles are on another layer, and people could actually take all those pieces and remix them into something new. That would be pretty interesting as well. And this idea that, granted, of the comic buying audience of fans, I mean, we're talking about 1% maybe who would have the interest or time to do that. Just like of the people who listen to music, a very, 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 very small percentage of them are doing remixes or mashups, like the DJ Earworm guy. But for that tiny percentage point, for that 1%, they wind up creating something that thousands of other people listen to and enjoy, and it increases kind of the overall enjoyment of the hobby of this profession. So with comics, unlike music, there's a lot more latitude in which people can tell stories, in which people bring things together. I mean, why not create digital artifacts that people could take and get that battle between Wolverine and Deadpool that they always really wanted, but the comics aren't giving them out of existing material? Or the people who want to take it even further are crossing brands, where why not have Wolverine fight Batman? You're not an artist. You're not really a comic writer, in that you don't think about serialized, writing all these things, but you do have an idea for a story. And a lot of fans that I talk to, a lot of readers I talk to, often have an idea for one story or two stories, or will say something like, You know, it'd be really cool is if they did a story where, you know, Wolverine fought Galactus. Wouldn't that be a cool story? And you know, and they kind of have this one idea in their mind, and they'd like to try it out. Well, if you could remix or mash up comics, then that one idea could come to life, and it could be a pretty cool digital thing that people could deal with. I remember hearing Matt Fraction say this, and I remember being kind of excited about the idea and thinking this would be interesting. And at that time, you know, the iPhone wasn't even really out yet, so digital was not a thing. I mean, the idea of digital comics was very much in its infancy. There was some real strong success over in Japan, but it really hadn't gone anywhere in the U.S. And it still really hasn't gone anywhere in the U.S. But as a mover, as something that could get people to start to consume more digital content and do more with digital and kind of really engage at that level and start sharing things around, it's a very intriguing idea. Now, it's hard to kind of believe that a Disney owned Marvel or even an AT&T Time Warner owned DC would ever do this. They're too protective over their IP. They certainly would never work together to allow those characters. But some of the smaller companies, I mean, if you're a Vault Comics, if you're a Dark Horse, if you're, I mean, Dark Horse is licensed property, so that might not be as easy to do. But if you're one of these companies, then I think that this is a no-brainer for you to put something out that can really kind of give a shot in the arm to your digital sales, build fan interest, and create this kind of viral experience that people can do things with. Marvel did have a sort of ish a concept around this where they could kind of like, now you get to do the Marvel universe, and they had Gwenpool at the center of it, but it was not a good experience. It wasn't true mashup. It was, I mean, these efforts in the past have always been defeated by the really crappy tools that work around the art. And what I think, and music used to do remix and other things, and nobody would go for it, or very few people, because the tools, if you're an artist and you truly had an idea of what to do with music, you wouldn't limit yourself by using some really crappy proprietary tool that the music company inflicts on you to mix these things together that bears no resemblance to what you know how to do and ultimately feels more limiting than empowering. And that's the problem with comics too. The people who had an idea for a story or wanted to do this kind of mashup, mix up of something, they are then, you know, they're confronted with a really hacky tool that just doesn't feel organic, doesn't feel natural. I mean, in a lot of cases, what these people really want is just Photoshop layers. They just want the page with one layer of art, one layer of coloring, one layer of text, and be able to just separate those out and do what they want with it. It's funny, you'd see better results and better pickup and traction if the art was just given out in a layered format for people to play around with for an issue. And there was some kind of tool at the end that you could make a CBR or some kind of digital file that you could easily share. If you just gave that, which would take very little investment from Marvel or DC or any of these companies to do, then you'd probably have a lot more success. You'd get really nice art, and the people who are the artists who have the really great ideas would know exactly what to do with those files and be able to work up something interesting. So is this going to save comics? No, not at all. It's just one extra little cool thing that would be fun for people to get around in. And this is what comics, when they're at their best, that's what they're doing. They're providing some fun. And fun and enjoyment and engagement is what we all should be hunting for. So, yeah, you know, it's something to think about. Anyway, hope you made if you made it to the end, good for you. This is a niche topic of a niche topic. So I appreciate those of you who stuck around to the end. If you did stick around to the end and you do not know what music mashups are, go take a listen. Like I said, DJ Earworm is a great one to start with because he's just very good at what he does. And so you know, I think the 2009, 2010 United State of Pop is what he does. Not the music I normally like is pop hits, but the way he blends them together really is pretty impressive. And so even if it's not music you like, you got to admire the skill. So hope you get that out of it at least. Thanks for listening. Like, subscribe if you don't mind. Tell a friend. Always appreciative. Follow me on Twitter at Comic Perch. And yeah, thanks for listening.